Welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. I'm Victoria Gallagher, your host. Have you been attempting to use law of attraction or hypnosis to attract financial abundance, a soulmate, or career success? Would you like to be happy, motivated, and successful? Have better health, enjoy more fulfilling relationships, overcome struggle, and gain mastery over your life? Then join me on this amazing self-help podcast where you'll unleash the power of your mind. I'll be sharing 20 years of wisdom and techniques of hypnotherapy, law of attraction, visualization, meditation, personal growth, positive affirmations, and other effective methods to help you tap into the great power which resides in your mind and become the best version of yourself. Hello, everyone. You are listening to episode number 61 of the Power of Your Mind podcast. And I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction coach, #1 best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction, Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps. So be sure to stop by HipTalk.com and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course. And for our listeners who found us through the Power of Your Mind podcast, you can get 35% off your first order of hypnosis downloads when you apply the code podcast to your shopping cart. And finally, I am so excited that I am launching our HypnoCloud app in the iTunes Store on Thursday, August 1st, and that is why I'm releasing this episode one day early so that you know about that. And so it's a free download, and there's literally 6 totally unlocked hypnosis sessions available in the app for anyone who downloads it. All right. I hope that was better for my person who reviewed me and critiqued and said maybe with a little bit of vocal coaching.
They weren't a vocal coach, were they?
I'm not really sure, but I'm glad that they're a fan, and maybe after 20 years of vocal coaching, maybe today is the day I'm going to get it right. Anyway, so thank you guys all for listening, and feel free to continue leaving those reviews. I do love them, and I do take the critique, and I am always working to improve the show in any possible way that I can improve it. So today I have a very special guest with me, John Soriano. John Soriano is a certified life coach, certified certified Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP. Well, there goes that vocal coaching right out the door.
The green light, don't answer it. Keep going.
Right? Certified Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP Master Practitioner, Certified ZPoint Coach Practitioner, Certified Hypnotist and Mindfulness Instructor, and an Advanced EFT Emotional Freedom Techniques expert. His clients know him for his flexibility stemming from intuition, which can range from very supportive to tough love, his mentoring and accountability, and his humor, among many other qualities. John has been a student of human psychology and emotion since his youth, being ever fascinated with what makes people act and behave in the way that they do. His journey led him to study a wide range of philosophical ideas from ancient to modern. His journey to the current set of tools that he uses began in 2005 with exposure to the powerful technique that we're going to talk about. And since then, John has continued to study and add additional tools to his arsenal of all kinds of personal development tools that he can use with you. So thanks to technology, John has had clients all over the world, from local in the United States all the way to one of my favorite countries, New Zealand. And he has also appeared on a number of radio shows, both in the United States and in the UK. And today, John is going to share with us some of his insights on emotional freedoms. Say it again. Some of his, today, you get a little self-conscious of it. People bring awareness to something. It's like you get a little self-conscious. So today, John is going to share some of his insights on emotional freedom techniques, EFT. So welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here again. I believe, can't remember if it was actually that we only did it on Facebook Live, or if we actually did a previous Power of Your Mind podcast where you were talking about NLP techniques. I seem to recall that was like almost a year.
It was a podcast because it went the distance that time because we were just having so much fun. I believe it was a podcast. I went almost 90 minutes, I think, last time.
Yeah, and so welcome back.
Thank you.
A second guest. You're actually, now that I think of it, the first time I've ever had a return guest.
Oh, wow. I'm honored. Thank you.
Yeah, and our conversation began pretty organically about having this conversation. We were, as usual, just having a little banter on Facebook, as people do, and we went into, I can't remember exactly how it journeyed into, let's talk about some EFT. I think we just and it was interesting too that it came up to talk about EFT because I had recently just had my own little issues that I was seeking out some ways to do a little detaching. And I actually sought out EFT myself as a way to help me to detach. I was just doing the no thing that I'm pretty sure that you would advise against, which is just looking up YouTube videos and doing my own little thing. But that's the no thing.
That's the no. Don't do that.
But sometimes I have a hard time reaching out for help. So
yeah, especially since you know a guy,
right? Right? Maybe I should. Maybe I need to.
I'd be honored anytime.
Yeah. So let's dive into this. So, like, what attracted you to wanting to learn and practice and help people with EFT in the first place?
Well, EFT, I came across it as part of a other program. It was a academic coaching program, actually, by the late Don Blackerby, who used NLP-based academic interventions. And he actually studied EFT with Gary Craig, the founder of the original version. And he found that so much more, in his words, elegant and rapid to help students with what he would call small t traumas, like stress of school, students with learning disabilities. School tends to be traumatic for them in and of itself. So that was part of the certification course. And I always love to tell this story because I was the skeptic. I came across it as part of the curriculum. And I remember looking at it. And now, mind you, I was a martial artist, so I knew about pressure points and all that, So it wasn't foreign to me. I've had my share of acupuncture and all that. But I looked at this thing, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, you want me to believe that suspending all sound judgment, that doing this is going to do anything. You're out of your mind, right? Okay.
Well, it's one thing to try to get you to buy into law of attraction, but like this tapping stuff, I mean.
Oh, yeah,
come
no.
on, for crying out loud.
Yeah, like, yeah, nuts. I mean, to me, I'm trained if I do something here, I'm putting the guy unconscious, That's what So I left it as late into the training as I possibly could, because I really wasn't interested. But the time came when everything else was done, and this was it. I had to face it. So I did some of the work with it, and I chose something fairly minor to work with. And
what was it?
That I don't remember specifically. I just remember I wasn't going to do anything, like.
I'm so nosy.
Yeah, we're only like in front of I don't know how many people. Let me like divulge that. No, I honestly don't remember. But I remember it wasn't going to be anything major. It wasn't like, every day I got bullied in 6th grade.
Right. Yeah, that might take a few more.
Yeah. So I started doing it, and I got this immediate shift. And I was like, okay, that was weird. Let me try this again. So I did it with something else. Boom. Well, that's really weird. Okay. So I finished what I had to do to get the certification. And then I started saying, well, let me learn a little bit more about what this thing is, because now I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Right. So I dove in to Gary Craig's training materials and everything else. That's all that was available really at the time. And I just devoured it and went from the beginning trainings to the advanced trainings to beyond trainings. Started seeing people while after that, and was just constantly floored by the results. Knowing that it's not, and this is where I'll probably take arrows from the EFT community, knowing that it's not a silver bullet. And there are times where it's just not the best go-to. Right. But I use it often, and I use a couple of different variations of it almost daily, especially working in the education system. I use it a lot with students. I've had students use it, recommend it to their friends, show their friends how to do it, bring their friends to me, because they're fellow students in the school, and that speaks volumes of the efficacy of it. And then I just started, like I said, devouring it and studying, talking with one practitioner after another. I'll never forget the night a top practitioner, most people in the field know him. His name is Gene Monterselli, and he came to Orlando one night, and we met at downtown Disney. Now it's Disney Springs, but it was downtown Disney at the time. And we spent about 3 hours talking just about EFT and everything. And I hadn't remembered since my early martial art days the last time I felt like I was sitting at the feet of a master. And the insights that he gave me in 3 hours were just mind-boggling. And then
isn't that cool when it's something?
Yeah, I mean, and he's such an amazing person. And then more recently, with one of the variations called Faster EFT, and I had spoken at length with Robert Smith, the creator of it, who really took a lot of his time to sit on Skype with me and give me some nuances into it and all that stuff.
He was in that movie. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, E Squared.
Yeah, E Squared. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has its really effective nuance.
Like, oh, I know him. I'm not sure if I've met him in person, but I know that I know him.
I think he actually did a Hypno Thoughts, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine that he did.
He did one of the Hypno Thoughts or Hypno Biz, one of the two he did a year or so ago, I think.
Yeah, I want to say hello to my Valerie Curry, and she says, hello, beautiful people. And I also want to say hello to Peter Kramer and also Patricia. Bessie just joined us.
So I've been lucky.
And Tiffany.
I've been lucky that I've been able to just associate with top people and top trainers and just absorb what is useful. It's been one of my mantras since my Kung Fu days when Bruce Lee's philosophy first was exposed to me. So that's in a nutshell how I got here.
Yeah, well, that's very cool. Are we going to get an opportunity to experience a little EFT during this? Because
Sure.
I just think it's so cool and very much like your original. And I'm not trained. I'm not like a master in EFT. I've dabbled in it, and that's, I couldn't even tell you if, I'm necessarily doing it the right way. But I had very much similar beginnings and just thinking about it as you did. And like, I mean, how can this is silly. Like, it just seems when you're doing it for the first time, it just, yeah, like, okay, this is going to do something,
Oh yeah.
No.
Well, actually, I said that's one of the bridges I use with clients.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're going to do something, and I'm just going to warn you in advance. It's going to look completely ridiculous.
Okay.
So I answer the objection up front before they even start thinking, because I already told them.
Right.
I'm not lying. You're going to feel.
Well, do you tap on that? I mean, do you like, even though I feel like ridiculous that I'm doing this?
Like totally, like, am I getting punked? Where's the camera? I've never had that.
Okay.
Come up really. Maybe it's because I preempt it by saying in advance it's going to look ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, for all the years it's been around, and it has its origins back into thought field therapy, which is a much more, how do I want to put it? Analytical approach, I guess. I mean, you tend to do things like muscle testing, and there's specific algorithms that you would use or patterns of tapping depending what you're working on.
So it's a little bit more complex.
It's much more complex. And what Gary did, because Gary was a student of thought field therapy, Gary Craig was. He was also a master NLP practitioner, by the way. What he did was say, okay, so for example, in TFT, an algorithm for anger would be you tap this point, you tap this point, and you tap this point in that order. For anxiety, it would be, say, top of the head, whatever, right? So what Gary Craig said and decided to do was, hey, what if, my favorite phrase, what if I just tap them all in one algorithm?
Okay.
So instead of saying, okay, I don't know what's wrong with the engine, it could be the sparks, could be the belts, could be the carb, I have no idea.
Check all the systems.
Just put the new engine in.
Yeah.
Do the whole overhaul.
Okay.
So what he did was he took this very complex system and he just, boom, simplified it to one algorithm. So no matter what you were looking at, you did the same thing all the time. So if a particular meridian didn't need any adjustment, no harm, no foul. You don't explode. But if one did, it got adjusted.
Yeah.
Because of the background on what classical EFT believes is the driver.
Right. Now, so earlier you were saying that, like, there's some things that maybe EFT is not the appropriate modality to, what are some of the issues that are best suited for EFT, and what are some that are maybe not so well suited? So
now, again, I'm qualifying that by saying that is my opinion.
Okay.
Now, you could probably, let me qualify that. So, in other words, being from Brooklyn, I like to get some places quick, right? And I don't have a lot of patience to get there either, right? So if there's another way that could get me to my result quicker, I'll use that instead of going the long way, right? So for example.
Now, is EFT the long way or the short way, or does it?
Well, it depends.
Okay.
Depends what you're working on and how you're working it. So for example, let's say you have you have an anxiety issue, generalized anxiety issue. Okay. But you can't trace it to anything specific as a trigger. Mm-hmm. Right. What new practitioners will make the mistake of doing will be tapping on, even though I feel anxious, It's too global for EFT to work. Mm-hmm. EFT is a very specific, targeted, laser kind of modality. You have to have very specific aim at what you're aiming at in order to get the results you get. So if I was with a client of that, I would one of two things. I could either dig and start tapping through things and seeing where we get. Or in terms of a general anxiety like that, I would probably just put them under. Because the hypnosis, I'll be able to use that with a global more effectively than trying to pick out random targets to specifically hit with EFT.
Right? Was it you who said the other day that do you also use EFT under hypnosis?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a gold mine, because a lot of times, let's say I'm talking with the client and they can't remember a specific, but intuition tells me there is one, but they're guarding. I'll put them in trance, and the subconscious will tell me where to go to target. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the gatekeeper keeping in the way. Mm-hmm. And it suspends all interference, which is the power of hypnosis anyway. So it's kind of like taking EFT and turbocharging it.
Right.
Because it's just pure on the thing. Now, of course, you have to use your skills and your common sense when doing stuff like that. You always have to build in your safety protocols, because you don't know what you're going to come across. So you always have to build in your disassociations and your boundaries and your protections just to be safe, because you don't know what you're going to come across. But yeah, it could definitely be used very well in the hypnotic setting. In fact, in the training I did with Richard Nongard, mm-hmm. One of the sections we do that.
If you find value in this personal growth related material, I strongly recommend that you sign up for your $1 trial to my Personal Growth Club. Just head on over to personalgrowthclub.com and get a whole month of premium Personal Growth Club video training materials, meditations. You also get 6 free hypnosis sessions that are valued at over $174, all for this trial of just $1. Even if you cancel, you can keep the 6 hypnosis sessions. That's my gift to you, and that's how confident I am that you are going to love Personal Growth Club. Go to personalgrowthclub.com and start your $1 1-month trial today. Oh, okay. That's very cool. So before we even move on to any other questions, it just occurred to me that some of the listeners here may have never even heard of EFT before. So I was asking you earlier, like, what got you into it, talking about what are some of the things that it could be used for, but there could very well still be some people that are listening to the podcast saying, mm-hmm. okay, what the heck is an EFT? Like, what does that do? Like, why do I want to do it?
Why would electronic funds transfer make me feel better?
Right? What are we talking about here? So let's just
back up okay.
a little bit and say what it is.
Okay. So looking at it from the classic EFT frame, emotional freedom technique is a system that deals with imbalances in the body's energy system. Okay, the basic premise, the foundational premise is all negative emotions come from a disruption in the energy field.
Okay.
The energy system. So the theory is, if let's say something happens to you extremely traumatic, the intensity of the event sticks it in your body's energy system. Okay, it's kind of like arteriosclerosis of the energy system, right? You have this blockage now.
Mm-hmm.
So through manipulating certain key points.
Now, is that the same thing as when people say that their chakras are blocked, or?
In theory, yes. In structure, no.
Okay.
Chakras are a different structure.
Okay.
Than meridians are.
Okay.
So if anyone's ever had acupuncture,
Mm-hmm.
basically this is emotional acupuncture without the needles.
Okay, that's a great way to.
Best way to frame it. So the points that we manipulate by tapping or by touch lend themselves to it primarily because they're closer to the surface of the skin than other meridian points that are on the same meridians. So we can manipulate them by tapping. You could also manipulate them by rubbing them, depending, because some people actually get annoyed doing this. Or you could just touch them, whatever, floats the boat. So the theory is if I tap on a meridian while focusing on the specific aspect, it'll cause the energy to now be released and flow freely through the meridian and through the energy system. Okay.
So it releases that block.
It releases the block. I always, even from the beginning, looked at it more from a psychological point of view. Whereas you're creating a relaxation response primarily when you tap. If you focus on something that was traumatic, okay, so here, and this actually this is when Robert Smith really, I think, puts it better than most. You know something's real when you feel it physically, right? So, give you an example. Vietnam vet. Still, it's 2019. If he was in Vietnam, ended 1973, still has flashbacks. Why? Because it's still real every time he feels it, right? Because the mind is wired that whatever process happens here reflects here, right? It has to match. If it doesn't, that's a whole other problem, right? So
you're talking about how your emotions manifest physically.
Right. And that's the key indicators for you to know it's real, whatever that is. So I think of an event, I get upset, right? Stimulus response kind of thing. So the brain says, okay, every time that happens or something close enough and you get triggered, you know what we do? You know, put the quarter into the jukebox and play the record. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So what happens when you tap while thinking of that specific aspect? You cause a relaxation response in the body and use the cybernetic loop in reverse.
Is it in a way like because a pattern interrupt kind of comes to my mind too? Like,
no, because you actually will focus on the aspect.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, that was one of the early things. It's just a diversion. Not really, because I'm still, every tapping point, I'm, still referencing what I'm focusing on. So it's not a diversion.
Okay.
And all in the classic style here. Because faster is a little bit different in how that approaches all that, but I'm going to keep it simple. So brain says, you think this, you feel this is how this works. So you do that while you're tapping, all of a sudden brain sends that and the body's all like, no, baby, it's beautiful. And sends a relaxation response back to the brain. So the brain doesn't know what to do. And, oh, no, you don't, no. Do it again. No, baby, it's all good. Again. So what it forces the nervous system to do now is to reprocess how it's processing it. So all of a sudden, you'll talk to somebody and they'll say, well, it's not as bright or as colorful as it was a minute ago when I was thinking about it. Or, the sound in there now sounds like it's far away where it didn't before. Those are all indicators that the nervous system is now starting to reorganize because, hey, the body says it's relaxed, there's nothing wrong. So I better adjust. So I'll adjust the lighting, the color, the size, the proximity, the sounds, the textures, all that. And then you've created change.
Now, let me ask you this. Obviously, the way that you've explained it, it works on energy and your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does it work on changing your thoughts?
Yeah, by default.
Okay.
Because if I have something that's sucking my energy or attention away, once I reorganize whatever's driving that, because remember, the thought pattern develops for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was usually an underlying aspect that caused you to learn that thought process, right? So if you collapse the driver of the thought process has to morph. It has nothing to drive it anymore. It's as if a thought process is a tabletop and all the references that built it are the legs. If I chop out 3 of the 4 legs, it doesn't matter if I get the 4th one or not, it's going to collapse anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's what we call generalization. If I get enough of them and they're all similar in pattern, the whole forest collapses. I don't have to do them all.
Right.
But those
I call that like the domino effect.
Yeah.
You know, like you got to figure out what's domino is going to knock down the rest of the dominoes.
Exactly. So the key between the beginner and the expert is to be able to find where the core aspects are.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the issue, in my experience, 95 or more % of the time, the aspects are at the belief levels or the identity levels
Mm-hmm.
of the neurological ladder. So I go after those initially.
Right.
Right. I don't go after the behavior. I don't care about the behavior because the behavior is way down here.
It's an outcome. It's not.
Exactly. So I'm going to go for what your beliefs are. I'm going to go for what your values are. And I'm going to go for who you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start playing there. And we could tap at those levels.
Right.
And once you tap at those levels and you start knocking stuff loose, all of a sudden thoughts begin to change. Because think of it, and I'll walk everybody through the neurological ladder real quick.
Yeah.
So you have, at the top of the ladder, you have your identity.
Mm-hmm.
There is greater system, which is a spiritual thing, but let's leave that to the side for simplicity's sake. So you have your identity level, you have your belief level under that, you have your capability level under that, your
Mm-hmm.
behaviors under that, and your environment at the bottom. So what happens is people want to, I don't like when I act this way. That's a behavior, right? Behavior is way down towards the bottom.
Right.
Right? So you could try and willpower your way through that all you want, change your environment, which is even lower, right? It's not going to stick for long. But if I did work at your identity level, and so, for example, if somebody thinks I'm a failure, identity level, right? Which would affect your belief or your thoughts now, right? Which affects your belief. Nothing ever works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which will then affect your capability, which won't be much because you've short-circuited yourself. You're not going to even try, which will lend to the behavior of you always avoiding things that could be profitable in whatever settings is bothering you. So if we go and we start tapping on why this person identifies as a failure,
Yeah.
and find what those core aspects are and collapse those, the thought process has to change on its own, but we will usually help it along with the use of reframes, strategically used during the process to get them to start to flip how they're thinking and how they're looking at things. But it makes it a lot easier when that energy stick isn't there or the psychological attachment isn't there.
Right. No, that makes sense.
You hit it.
That makes a lot of sense. So if a person comes to you with a basic issue like I don't know, they want to stop swearing or whatever it is, that's like a behavior they want to stop. You're going to take them into, well, why do you want to stop, and why can't you stop? And you're going to take them back up the ladder, the neurological.
Well, yeah. I mean, why do you stop swearing for something like that, which is pretty.
I just made that. I was just like.
No, but that's a good example. So it's not, that may or may not necessarily be an identity issue. Right. But it probably is. And so, for example, someone comes to me, I can't stop swearing. Okay, well, when did you start doing that? Oh, well, always, ever since. Okay, well, who'd you hear it from first? Right? And so you see me starting to go. And, well, yeah, at the dinner table, Dad would always call me an effing idiot. So, oh, okay. And it's like Top Gun. You got tone lock. And that there's your target.
Right? Yes.
And you start collapsing that.
Right. And then that's where you're going to start doing the tapping. Okay.
Yeah. So now there's even aspects to the aspects, which is why it's really important if you're going to do anything deep, to work with someone. Right. Because some people will try it and say, oh, it doesn't work. It didn't work for me. Right. So, and I'll give an example. I had a colleague of mine, we worked together for a little bit, and she had a tragic accident a few years back. And she was a top person, so she knew what she was doing, and she worked it through by herself with other coaches and everything else. And she thought she got rid of it-ish. But it still kind of hung on just a little bit. So the detective work came. She says, okay, let's go through the incident, and what I had to end up doing was walk her through every aspect of the aspect. And it turned out the one thing that she never tapped on was the smell of the powder from the airbag. Oh. So she tapped on the lights, she tapped on the sounds, she tapped on what was being said, she tapped on all of that. But there was one key trigger still there, one aspect of the aspect, which was the smell of the powder.
And that's very strong. That's a very strong, powerful sense. I mean, you can walk
sadly, I know about that, yeah.
Yeah, I know you know. Yeah. I mean, the smell of anything can just bring you right back to.
Right. And the thing is, if there was a scent that was remotely close, she could get triggered and not know why. Right. So once we collapsed that, then that was it. We were done. The rest of it was just gone. Right. So same thing with in hypnosis, where we use a lot of metaphor. Metaphors are very powerful in EFT work, because someone else, they'll use their magic words all the time, where they repeat something 3, 4, 5 times within like a minute. And, it's always cloudy. It's just always cloudy. It's cloudy, it's cloudy. It's always cloudy. Okay. Well, what color is the cloud? Oh, it's dark gray. And I did that with somebody who was, with back pain, believe it or not. And it turned out the back pain was actually tied to her depression, which she had since she was a child. Oh, wow. And that's what the clouds were. Yeah. So we tapped on the clouds, because I don't know what the metaphor means, but her mind does. So I'll use the metaphoric language and deal directly with the subconscious mind, just like we do in hypnosis. Right. Right. So, and I say, even though I have this dark cloud, and couple of rounds. What color is it now? It's a light gray. Okay, there we go. A couple more. What about it now? It's white, but it's still heavy. And it's like, she's gonna make me work. Okay, so we keep going around it again. So finally, the clouds dissipated. Once the clouds dissipated, though, this was the fascinating part. The back pain went away. Wow. And I had almost given up on it, because I was trying to attack the pain directly, and it was giving a little, but not enough. And she didn't have back pain since.
Right. So let me ask you, that is powerful. That is really, really powerful. Good for you and good for her for seeking you out to relieve that. So one of the things that was kind of coming up, because I know that a lot of my Power of Your Mind audience are people like, coaches, entrepreneurs, hypnotherapists, people who are, into law of attraction, wanting to manifest success and things like that. Can EFT work for helping people to manifest things? Can it work for, becoming, for having success in your business, for becoming a millionaire, for, what are the limits? Like how far,
Try that millionaire one. Hold on. I'll let you know.
Let's do.
Well, sure. Because, I'll use myself as the example, right?
Okay.
Because I'm now studying my law of attraction more because of our last discussion. And when you get into the ugly work of law of attraction, that's when you see where the blocks are.
Ooh, the ugly work. Please tell me the ugly work.
The ugly work, right? So at one point, going through some of the exercises in your book, I would come across things where that'll never happen. It never happens like that. And I catch myself. I said, "Oh, okay, here we go."
Could be limiting belief.
Buckle up.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I believe that?
Mm-hmm.
And I started finding references of every time I failed at something, and I tapped on them. So once the obstacles are removed, because law of attraction, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I'm understanding of it so far, if we didn't get in the way, it would be pretty easy.
Exactly. We're just not we're not in alignment on some level. And
Mm-hmm.
you might call it the neurological levels. I call it the manifesting conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're just not in alignment. We're not lined up with what we desire. And so for me, it's usually one of those 8 conditions that is out that we're not lined up with our desires. There's not a straight path. Once there's a straight path to it, boom, it's there.
Right. So then the question then becomes, why are we not?
Yeah.
And a majority of the time, we're not because of the writing, as Gary Craig would call it, the writing on our walls.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
The spots, like the limiting beliefs and things like that.
Yeah. And the thing is, most of the writing on our walls, we didn't write.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else wrote it.
Right.
Our parents wrote it. Our pastors wrote it. Our teachers wrote it. Our friends wrote it. We didn't write it, but we're buying it. Right? So let's say somebody wants to manifest $100,000 year in sales.
Right. Which is a pretty popular.
Pretty popular. It's a round number.
Yeah. Hey, I want to shout out to a couple more.
Sure, of course.
People that just popped on. Hey, Bobby. Hey, Kate Olson. Hey, Beverly. Beverly's my sister. And hey, Tani. One of my sisters. I have a huge family.
Oh, that's cool.
But you guys feel free to ask us any questions that you have. This is actually going to be aired on Power of Your Mind podcast, but we're here live, and so happy to answer any questions that you have here.
So let's say they want to manifest $100,000 a year in sales.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's nice. But they've never done over 30.
It's quite a stretch.
Right. So you know that you're going to have to deal with 2 levels right off the bat. Your identity level and your belief level. Right? And we can work the beliefs, but unless we get to the point in their identity where they can say, I'm a $100,000 salesperson, it's going to be 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. All right? It's the roller coaster person.
Yeah.
Right? In education, I call it the roller coaster student. It's the kid that's constantly going from A's to F's and A's to F's to A's to F's. And they'll tutor them. They'll do all this kind of interventions without hitting the most obvious one. And the reason I get so drastic results in students so quick is because I go right to the identity. Why is this kid on the roller coaster? The bottom line is he doesn't believe he's going to be a good student. He is not a good student identity-wise. Mm-hmm. So when he gets out of his own way for a minute, he scares himself because the thermostat's not set there.
Right.
So thermostat kicks in, down he drops, he'll cut class, he won't do his homework, all that stuff until he's failing out and realizes he's not going to graduate. Then somebody kicks back up and it goes up and down, up and down. In sales work, and I did 12 years in sales work, it's the same deal. So if I took a salesperson who wanted to manifest $100,000 a year, they know how to do it. If they've been in the industry any amount of time, they know how to do it.
Yeah.
Sales is really not rocket science. But sales has a lot to do with your identity.
Yes.
And how much rejection you can stand.
Yeah.
Right. An old sales manager once told me, if you don't like the word no, you're in the wrong profession.
Right.
Right. So could their identity withstand it?
Was it shy salespeople have skinny kids?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be the used car, hey, how you doing kind of guy anymore. But if so, I just can't follow through, and that's why I'm not making the money. Okay, why not? Mm-hmm. What do you believe is going to? I'm inconveniencing the person. I don't want to bother them. That's a belief, right? Where'd you get it from? Because Dad said I should always be seen and not heard. Bingo. Tap, 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 tap. Mm-hmm. Collapse that.
Yeah.
Right? So at any point where they're going along the law of attraction journey and they're journaling stuff and saying, and I actually did this with a couple of your assignments that were in the book. I had my own little twist to it and said, okay, well, what belief is holding me back on that? Mm-hmm. Right? Where am I? What aspect is tripping me up here? Looking at it from my neurological ladder point of view, and I was able to target quite a few, actually. So there was a few draining days going through your book where it's like, oh, I better hydrate, man, because this is like.
I love it, though. I Hello, this is Victoria Gallagher. I hope you're enjoying listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. As a way of thanking you for listening, I'd like to offer you a one-time discount of 35% off your first order at hiptalk.com. Just go to hiptalk.com and enter the code PODCAST in the discount code area in your cart, and you'll receive 35% off your first order. Thank you so much for listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. You know what, that just touches my heart so deeply that a person, especially somebody like you, would just take it so seriously and put so much energy and effort into the work, because it is a work, I almost, the book was almost called a workbook. I had a little buzz on my, the work, I was almost going to call it a workbook, but then I didn't want to turn people off who, didn't. So I love hearing people talk about it the way that you're talking about the work that you do. And, I could definitely see in the future having another edition of it that maybe includes some more tools like NLP and EFT, and maybe I might need a little help in writing those. Those. I know
a guy. Just saying, but yeah, because again, like when you and I had our law of attraction discussion,
which was great, wasn't that? That was such
that was so much fun. It really was.
That was a famous conversation now in my book.
I didn't expect that.
That one, I need to repurpose that as a podcast, because that was really
but I remember saying that my impression of it was off The Secret primarily. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and The Secret was primarily for mass consumption, so they did not want to put the ugly side.
Yes.
You know, you just go wish, and the big genie comes out. Your wish is my command. You know,
You almost did a pretty perfect impression.
You know, and James Ray is there. Well, you know, how crazy is that? And you know,
oh my gosh, you should do it. You're doing great impressions of these guys.
But it makes it so like there's no effort to it.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is think and sit, and you're done. And even thinking, Science of Getting Rich, at least he talks about action.
Yeah.
But it's still, well, all you gotta do is focus it, and you're good.
Right.
Right.
It's
the dirty part of it is
it's so misunderstood because, you know, on the other hand, it's like it's not all about action, because if you just action, you know, then you're going to get in the way, because most of the time those actions are not being taken from an inspired place. They're being taken out of desperation to, you know, I got to make this happen, you know, and you're coming from and it's not coming from a high vibration, it's coming from a low vibration. And, you know, and I had to actually, I got into that myself, a few weeks back. I was like really coming from a very low vibration on something, and just action. And I kind of realized, I need like, if I'm not even, I'm creating all kinds of anxiety, and I'm not in control of my emotions right now. And so if I'm not even in control of my own being, if I'm not even able to manifest a state, how am I going to manifest something that's not even like in my present awareness right now?
Yeah, because those desperation moments, it forces us into these shotgun approaches. You know, and you go and boom, well, I hope something good runs into that. I mean, it's not how that works.
Yeah.
You have to actually aim at something first, which is where the inspired action comes from. And that's actually what the question I had asked in your Facebook group about dates on goals.
Yes.
Because I am, again, I'll fault my Brooklyn DNA on this. If I have it set for this date, it better get there. You know, or somebody's getting whacked. I mean, it's just how it's going to be. You know, dead fish in the newspaper, the whole smack. So it drives me nuts if I'm approaching a deadline and I'm not even close.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I had asked the question at what point maybe dates become counterproductive, you know, but now from an EFT point of view, we could also look at that and say, well, why do I get so flustered on a date? Right?
Yes.
Probably because I've missed a gazillion gold dates in the past, and one or two really stuck in my craw.
Yeah.
You know, when I wanted to do this and didn't do it, and it cost me XYZ. So I could go and tap on that, right, and relieve the thing. Sometimes you could, like, say if you're just agitated, you could do what I call physiological EFT. Other people have other names for it. Excuse me, where you could just tap and just focusing on the tap. And that's
so
it.
Specifically, you're just tapping, but you're not even, no words to it?
Yeah, just, right. It could take an edge off to do that. Now, you're not going to get lasting shifts or anything like that doing that.
Right.
But it will take an edge off. I use that a lot. If I have, like, say, an agitated student in front of me, they can't even talk. They're so agitated.
Right.
I'll just say, look at me, do what I do. Don't ask any questions. And they'll do that. And they'll relax enough physiologically to be able to speak.
Yeah. Well, I want to,
what's going on?
I'm going to say two things about just addressing your comment again about the law of attraction, action, and secret and stuff like that. So, you know, and then I actually want to, like, have you go through an EFT process with us on, like, manifesting something maybe.
Sure.
Or, you know,
scenario,
something.
and I'll lead you through it.
Okay. So
if somebody has one.
Yeah. Or if anybody here in our group has something that they want to work on, I could just be the surrogate and do, is there such a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They're actually surrogate work.
I just made that up, but I kind of knew that from there was another energy work. I bought the book on it, and Michael Lozier actually is now certified and certifies people in it. Motion code.
Oh yeah, can be surrogate work too.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to the work of law of attraction, in my opinion, is the work of clearing yourself and clearing all of your states of mind, emotion. Getting more of a direct line of communication going, raising your vibration, so that, the universe, or whatever you want to call that, superpower, your own subconscious mind, whatever, so that you're just in more clear communication with that. And also kind of giving up the trying to figure it out all the time and the hows and everything. Cause you just never know exactly how. You know what you know, but if you don't know certain things, you have to be willing to be open to things showing up in ways that you may not have ever realized before. And most of the time they do show up in ways that you never realized that they could show up. There's so many possibilities that we couldn't possibly know them all.
That's very deep. Well, it's the truth. It's, again, a lot of the places where people get law of attraction information from doesn't really hit on what you just said.
So true.
So another no law of attraction from YouTube either.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I don't have any, I don't have any problem necessarily with the movie, The Secret. I just think that if you are a student of law of attraction, you need to go beyond The Secret and, and not take that everything that the way that they portray it so literally, because it's, if you are going to, if you're going to take that literal and that's the way that it works, you're going to be very frustrated. And many people are, and many people get very, very, very angry at the law of attraction because of their idea of how it's supposed to work, and it's not working that way. Well, it doesn't work that way.
Exactly right. And it almost becomes counterproductive because they're getting so upset that it doesn't work as simple as the movie, and then they start creating things to be upset about.
Yes. Yeah.
And there goes the vicious circle, and they don't even know how they got on the ride. But they want to get off, but they don't know how to even get on. So
exactly.
But yeah, it's definitely a lot more multifaceted than I had originally thought when we first had our discussion. I've learned a lot since our discussion. Still haven't manifested that 50-pound drop in weight, but it's getting there. Okay, so has anybody come up with a scenario they want to work on?
They haven't.
Okay, so let me think. You give me a scenario, and we'll do a basic run through. Okay.
So should I be like totally vulnerable and honest and like?
Your call. I got you either way.
I'd love to manifest. I'd love to manifest. I know, since my app is coming out, I would love to manifest 1 million downloads of my app on day one.
Okay. Now
I am stretching. Should I make it like a little bit? Okay.
That's fine.
I'd love to manifest one, like I can't even conceive of that. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
love to manifest 1 million downloads.
Okay. So for something like that, my first question would be, assuming if this wasn't you, right?
Okay.
Because you know how to get out of your own way to do that, right?
Yeah. Let's pretend.
Let's
I'll
pretend.
play along.
So why do you think that won't happen?
I've never been able to. I have other apps that I've released. I have probably about 20 other apps. So I have proof that I can't make it happen because I've tried in the past to launch apps and I've never managed to get more than like 2,000 downloads in a day.
Was there any one of those times that was particularly disappointing?
Probably the first one, which was the one that I actually did get the most downloads on.
Okay. And you anticipated what?
I thought that we would, number one, I thought we would be number one in the lifestyle apps. And I think we made it up to about the top 10. And so we weren't number one. And ask the question again.
Well, that particular incident was one that bothered you.
Yeah, that bothered me. That one bothered me the most because it kind of crushed this whole anticipation that I had going into it. I thought, we'd be able to get like 10,000 downloads in that one day.
Okay. So at some point, what did it feel like when you realized you failed?
Disappointed, frustrated, like kind of crushed.
Okay. So this big thing that crushed you,
mm-hmm.
What was it? The failure or?
Yeah, it's like another, it was like a kind of another failure. It's like another failure.
Another failure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this wasn't the first one.
Mm-mm. Not like
for the apps,
in
was the
apps.
First one.
Yeah.
Right, but there was something else that made you feel even worse before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first failure that I ever had, seriously, since I've been in business, the first failure I ever had was Magento. That's the story. That's the title of the story is called Magento. And this was back in 2010. And I thought this software was going to make all the difference in the world in my business, And so it took the developers, it took them way too long. I went through like 3 or 4 different developers. So I had a lot of challenges, a lot of negative energy around this because, the Magento was supposed to happen and just totally just make my website amazing and powerful. And I mean, like literally the first day that I launched my new and improved website, there was a problem. People couldn't access their downloads, and I had all kinds of people screaming at me. And so it was a fail, I don't know if that one hurt more or Personal Growth Club. When I first launched, very, very first launched Personal Growth Club, that wasn't the so I've had a few fails, I've had a few fails. Okay. And when I say fails, they just didn't live up to my expectations.
Okay. So
the fanfare that I was hoping for.
Before we even tap,
mm-hmm.
for the people who are listening and watching, notice what happened here, right? We went from app to the first app. Her language told me that wasn't the stop. That mm-hmm. wasn't the destination. We went further back. Now, just so happens, website work and member site work is extremely similar to app work, right?
Yes.
Hence probably where the trigger might be coming from,
mm-hmm.
of the same feeling, the same vibration, because the aspects are still similar.
Yeah.
And right, so we could go back to the personal growth one.
First, I think that one hurt the worst. That one hurt the worst because I had a goal. I wanted 2,000 members. Okay. And I was kind of like on track for that. And then the very next month, because I was giving a free, I was giving a free trial. Next month, half of the members canceled their membership. And it broke my heart because I had worked so hard for 2 years on putting together this amazing amount of content. Not only just the content, but all the, BS that goes into the, the tech side of things. And I thought that I was off to a really good start. I thought everybody's dreams were coming true. And
half of them canceled.
And it broke my freaking heart. It was just like. Was
there a possibility any of that was taken personally?
Yes.
You? Okay.
Yes, because these were my people, and
this was your work.
This is my work. Like, don't you see how, don't you see the value of all of this amazing content that is my life's work that I've worked so hard on, delivering in just the right way so that people could have major breakthroughs in their lives and all the stuff that I wanted, and
half of them said it wasn't any good.
And it was like they said that. It was like that they basically said, F you, Victoria.
Yeah, your life's work. That's so hot. We're moving on.
Yeah, and of course, I drew a lot of conclusions about that, because when I was in that place, I got a little bit depressed. I felt like powerless, and so I was out looking for solutions. And one of the little ahas that I had, because then I was right there in the same boat with them, I said, I don't want a process that's going to take a whole year, because it takes a whole year to go through Personal Growth Club. I'm like, I don't want anything, I want to be fixed next month. I want to be fixed,
excuse me,
in 90 days maximum. I don't have a year to achieve my goal. We need to So it was like almost like I got a taste of my own medicine. I was expecting other people to take a year. And, a lot of people did. In hindsight, a lot of people did. I have graduates of Personal Growth Club and they're wonderful, and they stuck it out, and they are better people as a result. And, but, I also understand it's not personal. Here's Bobby. He says, thanks for sharing that story. I love the Personal Growth Club, by the way. It was wonderful for me, at least. So, I wasn't on here just to, talk about that, but, that was just something that was probably for me when it wasn't going the way that I was hoping that it would go back in 2004, 2005, when I initially launched it. That was heartbreaking.
So, again, let me take a step for a second to point a couple of things out.
Mm-hmm.
See how this is getting more personal.
Yeah. Oh, right? It is. Yeah. So
it went, your resonance and everything, I could tell that crushed you as you were saying it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're looking at higher level on the ladder stuff to look at. Okay. It's not just about the goal, is it? It's about, and I'm going to take a guess. You tell me if I'm wrong. I could be. All right. But let me try my Derek Brown impression here.
Mm-hmm.
Main thing you're afraid of is not so much not hitting the goal, but man, what if I put this out there and it feels I'm being rejected all over again?
That's so weird. I felt that in my body when you said that. And it does kind of feel like a rejection. And then there's also just the feeling like freaking did it. Like I hit the act, and that's not my real goal, by the way, but I hit the goal, and I accomplished what I set out to accomplish. Mm-hmm. I was able to get that app in so many people's hands. So yeah, so it's partly it's the rejection, but I think for me, even there's just something about the failing to accomplish what I set out to accomplish that hits me really deep too.
Okay. So some stuff, if this was in the scenario, we've already got some things to aim at as to what they're, because talking about law of attraction, right? And we're talking about manifesting 1 million downloads as a thing of LOA. If I'm afraid of feeling rejected or failing again, could the fear interfere with my frequency?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Right. So in this case, we'd say, okay, I would take you back to the personal growth club experience, right? And we tap that aspect. So let's just walk it through as if.
Okay.
Okay. And
I'll take my glasses off so I don't. When you do this, say the places that you're.
I do all the. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do out of habit.
Okay. Just for the listeners.
Usually the clients actually got their eyes closed when they're doing it, and they don't see me shifting around. So.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So that's fine. And if it helps you to close your eyes, you can do that too. So we're going to start on the edge of the hand here. And we're going to go back into the experience just for a second, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt, get back into that state when you realized it just crashed and burned that second month. Half of them just left. It's my life's work. It is rejected. Got it? Okay. And we'll use that frame. Okay. So, even though start tapping on the side of the hand here. Okay. Even though my heart was crushed.
My heart was crushed.
I felt rejected.
I felt rejected.
Not only did I fail. But my work was rejected in the process.
My work was rejected in the process.
But I love and accept myself anyway. Okay. Top of the head, my heart was crushed.
My heart was crushed.
Eyebrow, my heart was crushed.
My heart was crushed.
Side of the eye, my heart was crushed.
My heart was crushed.
Under the eye, half of them quit.
Half of them quit.
Under the nose, half of them just rejected my work.
Half of them just rejected my work.
Chin, how could they do that?
How could they do that? They didn't even give it a chance.
Collarbone, that was my life's work.
That was my life's work.
And under the arm, those peasants. Okay. Take a deep breath. Okay, stop. You can stop tapping. Take a deep breath. Now, one thing I did forget to do, and I do that sometimes, so I don't use the scale all the time.
Oh, right. What was the feeling?
0 to 10, how intense was it at the time?
At the time? Because like now I've kind of grown past it, but at the time, it was like pretty high. It was like an 8.
Okay, because I could feel about a 7 just by you reconnecting. Okay,
all right. Yeah, let's say it
was about there, give or take. But I should have done that in advance.
Yeah.
I don't always anyway.
But the fear of repeating that old situation still exists.
Right. So, but now also notice how that shifted to another thing.
Yes. Right? Oh, yeah.
So we already have motion and stuff happening. Also, if you notice, I wanted to use your words as much as possible.
Okay. All right.
Especially magic words.
Should I chime in there every once in a while with when you're saying something, should I chime in?
Oh, yeah. If something else comes,
okay.
one of your magic buttons was my heart was crushed. You said that multiple times. So I was definitely using that one for at least a few of the points, right? So because if somebody says something repeatedly, their subconscious mind is putting value to it.
Yeah.
So you're driving. I'm just telling you which way to go on the map, but you're driving. Right? Okay. So we did that. So now let's look at we're going to change the aspect a little bit. So even though the fear of repeating that mistake still haunts me. Even with this new app. I could crash and burn it again. But I still love and accept myself anyway. Okay. Before we tap any further, let me explain that one real quick.
Okay.
Setup phrase. Back in the early days, Gary used to use something called a psychological reversal term that this was supposed to be clearing up. His later versions took that concept out. Because it really didn't make a lot of sense. You really don't have such a thing called a psychological reversal. You have a tail ender that's giving you a payoff in another direction. But some practitioners are trained to say that 3 times. I was trained to say that 3 times. I usually don't say that 3 times anymore.
Okay.
But so if someone's watching, they say, well, I was taught to do that 3 times. Yes, you were. So, and you're right. And so am I. But I tend not to do that more than once.
Okay.
Unless I think there's a couple multiple facets I want to hit at the same time, then okay. But otherwise, I'll just do it once. Okay. So
and pressure of the tapping, like I'm pounding it pretty good. Like
don't hurt yourself. I mean,
okay.
I'm starting to see a bruise on the side of your hand there. I'm not gonna be able to.
Don't bruise it, but like I mean.
No, but whatever feels right.
Okay.
The general mood is 7 times, but don't count.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Because you're just getting caught. You'll know.
Okay.
But
7 times is like
approximately per point. Now, if I'm really in the flow, they'll be like boom, boom, just like whatever. It takes its own life. But so for now, anyway, we'll just go to the top of the head, medium pressure, not where you're, it's not like Chris Farley, stupid by the river, So okay. I'm just noting myself something to make sure I remember after we're done.
Okay.
Okay, so top of the head, fear of repeating the mistake.
Okay,
eyebrow, this fear. Sorry, I do not want to go through that again. Under the eye. I can't take that kind of rejection again.
I can't take that kind of rejection again.
Under the nose. Fear of a repeat.
Fear that'll repeat.
Chin, fear of a repeat. Collarbone, I don't want to go through this again.
I've got one.
Okay, under the arm.
Okay. Oh, what if I launch this app and it doesn't work?
Yeah. Lord knows tech always works.
Right?
Okay. And take a deep breath again. Now, one thing that I do, Gary Craig used to do it. A lot of practitioners do it. There is a bit of a pattern interrupt.
Okay.
Okay. I use humor as a pattern interrupt.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, like when I cracked you up with those peasants.
Yes.
Okay, right out of left field, that was on purpose.
Okay.
Okay, because I want that to jolt a little bit while we're going through the process, because it helps shake things loose a little bit faster. So, okay, so thinking now to the 1,000 apps, a million downloads, I should say. Or no, I'm sorry. Going back to the membership. Thinking about that now, what's different?
Since we've been tapping. There's less energy on it for sure.
Now, future pacing that forward, how is the fear of a repeat?
Still there, but not as significant.
Is it different in intensity or different in quality?
It's different in intensity. It's not as intense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, of course,
I just feel a little bit more lighthearted about it, kind of like it is going to be what it
let it be cake.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if this was an actual situation, we just keep going until we got to zeros.
Right. Okay.
But the takeaways from what we went through is, and again, stressing the importance of like something like that would work better working with somebody else.
Yeah.
Unless you really, that self-aware to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But we went from, kind of, the million download thing to one thing to another till it got into some really deep area.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I knew where the target was.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was brilliant.
And of course, in law of attraction stuff, once that fear in this scenario would be neutralized,
mm-hmm.
your manifestation will be easier.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I went through that with myself with with my workshop. I had some fears initially that, I wasn't going to be able to, fill my workshop. And, I went through a little attachment, to how that was going to happen, even though I had half the workshop filled up and still 4 months away.
This is a Scottsdale one, right?
Yeah. And I realized it was now there's actually 15, there's only 5 seats left and it's still 2 months away. So, people are signing up in ways that I never would have imagined before. But I was being a little control freak about it and kind of thinking, no, they have to, because I was doing some Facebook ads and the Facebook ads weren't working. And so, that's one of the things with law of attraction is that when you get very fixated on a very specific, particular way that something's supposed to show up for you, you're chasing it away and you're not seeing and open to see other possibilities. Mm-hmm. And, so I was getting upset that, the Facebook ads weren't working.
Because those always work too.
Right, exactly. But
you don't change the algorithm every 2 hours. I mean,
but then, as soon as I said, okay, I literally, I need to change my state of mind about this. I need to let go of control about this. I need to just, is what I was telling you the other day about having, a longer time horizon. I just need to focus on the end result of what where I ultimately, I know there's 20 people in there. I just have to be patient, mm-hmm. And just because it doesn't happen today, that today is my ego. Mm-hmm. Today is it needs to happen my way. And
a lot of that is how a person's wired to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, and I'll use myself as the example again. I'm highly analytical, mm-hmm. and a bit of a control freak. I have a forceful. I can relate.
I'm kind of I'm very much like you. And
I have a fairly forceful personality. Sometimes to a fault that gets me in trouble with people, but I am a kind-natured guy at heart. But sometimes my forceful personality gets the better of the scenario. So my ugliest work is still to come in law of attraction, because it's going to, right now I'm even saying I need to, get to the point where I could give up more control.
Yeah.
And I'm having a visceral reaction as I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Right. My gut's like, the hell you will, you know. You're doing this 54 years, bro. You ain't getting rid of nothing. So that's where I know I'm going to have to do a lot more of this, because why do I need to control it so much?
Yeah.
Where did I learn that in my
Mm-hmm.
timeline? And
Yeah.
that's where the ugly work's going to be. But
well, yeah, and
he's going to come in handy, though.
I love that term. I might borrow that from you, the ugly work.
You said that.
Did I?
Yeah, during our LOA conversation.
It must have just come out
or something like that. Yeah.
Wow, that that must have just kind of come out like and not realized it. So I'm glad you picked it up and
take it back.
Giving it back. I love
you. Yeah.
Because it's actually a really good way of explaining it in a lot of ways, because the work it's just not always pretty. And it's not just, sitting on your beanbag, meditating, hoping for the, you've got to be willing, law of attraction matches who you are. It doesn't match what you want.
Yeah, that was a quote I saw once from, I believe it was Neville, who said that. And when I first saw that quote, it struck me to the core.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, I must be one son of a bitch. Because I really need to do some work here, because wow, it's the Brooklyn Italian. I'm trying to. It's like an epigenetics kind of approach at this point, but
yeah,
it is what it is. But yeah. So I hope people got out of this how the tapping could help them on the journey to the law of attraction.
Yeah, and then all journeys. I mean, even if you're not most of my Power of Mind fans are into the law of attraction, but if you're not, and EFT works on all things, all realms, and I definitely got a lot out of it. So we definitely as part for the course with you and I,
we went over.
We ran a little over. Yeah. I wasn't anticipating that. I'm sure neither. Well, I don't know. Maybe if law of attraction's really.
I didn't not anticipate that.
Right.
That way.
Right.
Yeah. We have a good rapport. So
we do. You're easy to talk to, and I really appreciate that about you. And I always learn a lot. I
appreciate that. Thank you.
So, well, I want to thank you for being a guest today on Power of Your Mind podcast. I also, for those of you who want to know more about EFT and more about John, you can actually visit his website, themindoptimizer.com. And you can also find him on Facebook, John Soriano Coach. And then he's also got a couple of books on Amazon, EFT for Everyone. He's co-written. You can look that up, or these are also going to be in the show notes. And Healing for Hypnosis, or Healing with Hypnosis. And then you also mentioned there's a course that you did with Richard Nongard that you were going to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, the link, you I guess could provide them in the notes.
I will.
As well. It was quick backstory on that. Richard and I were talking for a couple months, and we decided to do an EFT course together. And people who have seen it always kind of give the same reaction. It was like, oh, wow, you guys, you must have been working together for a long time and everything else. We literally physically met each other for the first time 10 minutes before we started shooting.
What?
And every one of those videos was a first take.
Oh my goodness. So you guys must have been in some pretty solid rapport with each other.
So we just, and the content is solid, unlike YouTube. So if you really want to get to learn the real deal, definitely check the course out. The link will be in the notes for this.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna I think you, it's at the subliminal, it's a subliminal science one. Okay, let's copy link address. I'm going to put this right here in, that's impossible. Okay, I'm going to have to do it another way. I have to like click on it and then, okay. Yeah. So basically, if you guys are interested in that and you're listening to Power of Your Mind podcast, you would go to subliminalscience.com and then go to the products or the courses here, and it's the IPCCH EFT Emotional Freedom Technique course, and that's going to teach you, there's 12 instructional videos there, it looks like.
There's a lot of content.
Yeah. Yeah, looks like you guys did some really good work together there. So that is awesome. And I'm also pasting the link here on the Facebook.
Okay, appreciate that.
And so I hope some people will take you up on your offer there for your EFT course and to learn that in a really solid way, because you and Richard are two very intelligent, good, wonderful instructors that I respect and look up to. So
thank you. That's very kind.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here today on the Power of Your Mind podcast, episode number 61. Thank you, John, so much for being a guest. And for those who are still here listening, God bless you. God bless you. It's been a long episode today. And be sure to leave us a review. That is how we go up the ranks, and more and more people find out about this show. I get told all the time it's a wonderful show, so I'm believing it, and I'm choosing to believe that you love it too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening. So please do leave a review and share this with everyone you know. And also be sure tomorrow, since this is coming on Wednesday, so Thursday, August 1st. Be sure to be one of those 1 million people who download my HypnoCloud app. I'll be looking forward to getting your review and hearing how you love my new HypnoCloud app. All right, so thank you so much for being here and tuning in to Power of Your Mind podcast. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. And once again, be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast if not already. We can be found as Hip Talk on all our social media accounts. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course at hiptalk.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast, and you'll be instantly notified the moment the next podcast becomes available. Also, please be sure to leave a rating and a review to tell us how you're enjoying these episodes, and that way you're making a contribution toward others getting to share in this valuable information. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast, brought to you by HipTalk.com, Personal Growth Club, and HypnoCloud apps available at iTunes.